Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Riski Annisa. My class management morning to be. Inflation. Inflation definition. Number 1. Inflation is a process of increasing price in general and continuously. An increase in the price of one or two goods alone cannot be called inflation unless the increase extends or cause price increase to other goods. Number 2. An increase in the price of goods or service which cause the purchasing power of money to decrease. This price increase occurs in most goods and services continuously or within a certain period of time. Number 3. Inflation can be interpreted an increase in the price of goods and services in general and continuously within a certain period of time. Number 4. Inflation is the process of an event, not the highs and lows of the price level. That is, the price level that is considered high does not necessarily indicate inflation. Reason. In general, inflation was caused by an increase in the Consumer Price Index or CPI. Not only that, inflation is also influenced by the rising of basic commodities. The existence of a demand pool or excess liquidity or money or medium of exchange, as well as pressure of production or distribution, lack of production, product or service, and also including lack of distribution are also cause of inflation. Number 2. For the first reason, it is more influenced by the role of the state in monetary policy central bank. Number 3. While for the second reason, it is more influenced by the role of the state in equator policy, which in this case are held by the government, such as fiscal, tax, or levies, or incentives or disincentives, infrastructure, development policy, regulation, etc. Cause push inflation. This inflation was caused by prices from the supply side of goods or service, which caused by affected by the depreciation of the exchange rate, the impact of inflation in trading partner countries, in increase in commodities regulated by the government, natural disasters and distribution disruption. Number 3. Political and economic chaos. Certain economic and political policies and cause inflation in society. An example of inflation is, for example, the government announced that it will increase the price of fuel before the policy is implemented. The products have stockpiled full. Number 3. The money supply and increase strictly. The cause of inflation is the money supply. This theory was brought forward by the classic. They say that there is a relationship between the money supply and the price of goods. Is the quantity of goods remains constant, but there is more money in circulation, the price will be high. Reason. The result of people's behavior. This is known as expected inflation. The cause of this inflation cause of a result of people's behavior. People who think that economic conditions in the future will be even better this type of inflation is difficult to detect. This is because inflation is not very significant. Rigid economic structure of producer cannot quickly prevent the increase in demand caused by population growth. In the end, demand is difficult to meet when there is population growth. Number 3. National debt. In addition, the cause of inflation is the national debt. When a country's debt increases, the government generally has two options. First, the government can raise tax. Second, the government prints more money to pay off the country's debt. Kind based on origin. Based on its origin, inflation can be classified into two, namely: Number 1. Country inflation. Inflation originates from within the country. For example, due to a budget deficit financed by printing new money and market failures, which result in high food price. Number 2. Foreign inflation. Inflation from abroad in inflation that occurs as a result of rising price of imported goods. This can occur due to high costs of producing goods abroad or an increase in tariff or important goods. Inflation can also be divided based on the extent of increase in price. If the price increase that occurs is only related to one or two certain goods, and the inflation is called cost inflation. However, if the price increase occurs for all goods in general, then the inflation is referred to as open inflation. Kind based on severity. Number 1. Mild inflation, less than 10% per year. Number 2. Moderate inflation, between 10% to 30% of year. Number 3. Severe inflation, between 30% to 100% per year. Number 4. Hyperinflation, more than 100% per year. Inflation spending group. Number 1. Foodstuff group. Number 2. Prepared foods, beverages, cigarettes, and tobacco groups. Number 3. Housing, water, electricity, gas, and food groups. Number 4. Clothing groups. Number 5. Health group. Number 6. Education, research, and sport groups. Number 9. Transportation, communication, and financial service group. Negative impact. Negative impact. Number 1. Impact of inflation on export. The first impact of inflation is that it will have an impact on the country exports. The export capacity of a country will decrease when experiencing inflation, because the cost of export will be more expensive. Number 2. Impact of inflation on cost calculation. Eventually, condition will make the calculation of the determination of the cost of goods difficult, because it can be too small or too large. The percentage of inflation that occurs in the future often cannot be predicted with accuracy. Number 3. Of inflation on income. The impact of inflation on society can be felt both positively and negatively, especially in terms of opinion. For example, if there is soft inflation, it will encourage entrepreneurs to production so as to improve the economy. Negative impact. Number 1, the cause of inflation in Indonesia is max inflation. The cause of inflation in Indonesia is max inflation, which is influenced by increase in supply and demand. The cause of inflation in Indonesia is an imbalance between supply and demand. When the demand for an item or service increases, it will result in a decrease in the supply of goods and factors of production. Number 2, the cause of inflation in Indonesia is expected inflation. The cause of inflation in Indonesia is expected inflation. The cause of inflation in Indonesia occurs as a result of the behavior of people who think that economic conditions in the future will be even better. People's expectation of future economic conditions can be the cause of inflation in Indonesia, especially demand inflation or production cost inflation. Inflation type that might occur in Indonesia is classified as difficult to detect because its occurrence is not too significant. Positive impact. Number 1, faster circulation or turnover of goods, production of goods. Number 2, the production of goods increase, causing an increase in the profits of entrepreneurs. Number 3, job opportunities increase with additional investment. Nominal. Number 4, nominal income increase even though the real income decrease because the increase in income is relatively small. Example, inflation. Suppose the government announced that it will increase the price of fuel before the policy is implemented. The producer have a stock built full. This is what causes scarcity in society, which is accompanied by rising price and panic in the community. Overcome inflation. Number 1, fiscal policy. The first way that will be done by the government is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy itself is related to revenues and expenditures from the government budget. Number 2, monetary policy. Monetary policy of financial policy that can be done by the increasing or decreasing the amount of money in circulation. Number 3, non-fiscal and non-monetary policy increase production, easy to enter important items, stabilize people's income. Per card and explanation. In 2005, it received 30%, but in 2016 it decreased to 30%. In 2017, there was an increase of up to 60%. In 2008, it decreased by 10%, while in 2019 it decreased again by 70%. How to calculate inflation? Calculating the inflation rate in Indonesia can generally be done using the indicators, namely the Consumer Price Index (CPI), the GDP dividend, and the Waste Price Index. The formula for inflation is follows. rate CPE for the period, CPE for the previous period, CPE for the previous period kali 3%. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.